NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months at SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Connie. Good. Big week for everybody in the wrestling world, and I'm excited to talk to you today. Bull Ramus is here, so nothing could go wrong.
It's live, baby. It's going to be fun. I love seeing you guys live as everybody's watching this last night in St. Louis. And of course, this Friday night, we've got a big rampage with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. And
yes, sir.
Of course, Saturday and Sunday, man, I can't believe it. It's WrestleMania season. WrestleMania is here. Of course, it's night 1 and night 2. It's a 2-night affair. What do you think about a 2-night WrestleMania?
I like it. It just gives you another reason to buy. It's 2 nights of programming. Smart. So I think it's a good idea. I never thought I'd see that day, but I understand it, because how do you determine who's on the card, who's not on the card? You create more peace in the valley, shall we say, by having more folks on the card, because that's the dream of a lot of them, is to be able to perform at that show. It certainly was for me back in my day. I always, WrestleMania was always special. So, I think it's a good idea, Connie. I think it's the right way to go in this deal.
I'm excited about it too. Of course, night 1 is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos. We got Logan Paul there with Seth Rollins. We're also going to have John Cena mixing it up with Austin Theory, Rhea Ripley challenging Charlotte for the women's title. But man, what everybody's talking about is Sunday night. Will they or won't they? Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns more than 900 days into his reign as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. What say you, Jim? Do you think they switch the title here?
Well, it certainly seemed like a great opportunity to, but I'm not 100% sure that'll happen. To be honest with you, I don't. That's kind of the magic of pro wrestling. Sometimes is when you can't call the finish.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. So I'm still on the fence on that deal. I'd love to see Cody win.
Mm-hmm.
I've known him since he was a baby boy. But it's hard to say. And that's another good reason to tune in, obviously, is to get those questions answered. So for Cody's sake, I hope that he goes over, but if he doesn't, look what he's done. He's in the main event of the biggest show of the year. And that goes without saying, it's a huge deal. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. I'm anxious to see it, and I'll be watching on Peacock. So it ought to be good. Should be a good show. I'm happy for everybody that's got booked and participating. So we'll see, man. We'll see how it goes for the Rhodes family. I'm sure they'll be there in mass to see their loved one compete, perform, and so I'm happy for Cody. We still communicate. We text each other somewhat regularly, so I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for the whole crew there. They've got this is what a lot of them have waited on.
Yep.
And by having it, Conrad, in 2 nights, you get you get more of a variety. I'm trying to say, and I think that's good for all the talent. It's good for the cards, good for the fans. So we'll see, man. I love the unanswered questions. I love to, and I haven't followed them closely enough to say, well, this trend is this, so therefore I think so and so is going to win. I just don't. That's just not a big priority for me to know who's going to win. I'd rather not know.
Right.
And right now I don't know, and many of us don't know. So All good. It's all good. It's WrestleMania, man.
I'm pumped. I can't believe it's finally here. And of course, we get the weekend kicked off with a real big opportunity on Friday night for the stars of Ring of Honor to show off. And one of the things I got circled on that card, amongst a lot of other great matches, is Vikingo versus Commander. And boy, that was quite a conversation over the last 2 weeks or so. Vikingo and Kenny Omega, A, the announcement and the criticism for it, and B, the pretty spectacular performance. Jim, you've seen it all in professional wrestling. What'd you think of Vikingo Omega?
I thought they had a real good match, and I enjoyed watching it, to be honest with you. Vikingo is new to me. I don't follow the Lucha Libre stuff as closely as probably I should, but I thought they had a hell of a match. I don't know what people would be complaining about, to be honest with you. I don't get that message, quite frankly. Do you?
No, it didn't make any sense to me. You know, I saw a lot of people saying, well, I don't know who he is. And I wanted to explain, hey man, you don't know who anybody is until you see him on TV. Right. They haven't done a good enough job building him up. I don't know why I should care. Well, how about watch the match and then you'll see if you care.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
yeah.
It was a little silly to me, but when the match was over, I think everybody thought, wow, okay. Vikingo, he's a pretty big damn deal. And I'm excited to see him doing more and more stuff with you guys. And if you're in the Northeast, you need to come check out a big Dynamite in Long Island on April 15th. Of course, there will be a live Rampage and Battle of the Belts on April 7th. I'm sorry, it was April 5th in Long Island. So right after WrestleMania, it's April 5th in Long Island. And then a live Rampage and Battle of the Belts just 2 days later in Kingston, Rhode Island. You know, our man JR is going to be there. And I hear that the Forbidden Door show in June is already doing tremendous business in Toronto.
I think it's sold out, Connie.
It's fantastic news, man.
Yeah, I think it's sold out. I think I was on the phone yesterday just to get a baseball update on Raphael Morphy's little boy, who's a prodigy baseball player.
Really?
He's only 8. He's amazing. He called me yesterday, the little guy did. Uncle JR. He was 2 for 3.
Wow.
They came back. They lost the game by a run. So Raphael called me and I said, how are things going ticket sales wise? And he mentioned to me that the Toronto show had sold out. So that's good.
That's fantastic.
Good for the home team, you know? So all good stuff, baby. All good stuff. But anyway, a sellout's good. Anytime you get a sellout, you're doing something right. So, and I think we're doing something right there. You know, I don't know what all's gonna, I just got a feeling that big things are on the way, and getting everybody healthy again and back in the roster again is important. And of course, the whole question is going to surround, will CM Punk ever be back? You know, I'm one of those guys that believe he will be back. And we'll see. I mean, I think AEW needs CM Punk because of his star power, and he brings with controversy creates cash, and he's certainly controversial. And I'm a big fan of Phil's, so we'll see how it works out. You know, I'm optimistic and positive.
Well, I'm optimistic about you guys running the Calgary Stampede. You're going to do another house show, and man, we've had a lot of fun talking about the Canadian Stampede pay-per-view from 1997. It's super cool that all these years later, AEW is coming back. It's happening July 15th. You can pick up your tickets and see Jim Ross and all the other stars of AEW at AEWTIX.com. That's AEWTIX.com to see Jim Ross live and on tour. How about that?
Yeah, man. Should be fun. It'll be easier to get to Calgary, or as they say there, Calgary, than not. Certainly easier to get to than beautiful Winnipeg, which I didn't attend. 3 flights, swollen feet, swollen ankles. Not good for old JR, but I'm excited about the opportunities we're going to have to go to Canada, and their fans are always so good and responsive. And hell, they don't know when we're coming back. I don't know when we're coming back. So take advantage of it now. Now's when you want to go, because you know it's booked, and here we are. So as Conrad said, AEWTIX.com is where you can get all your tickets, all your information, and hopefully you'll respond and buy those tickets and enjoy our show.
Well, I know we all enjoyed your show last week. I was away. You had Paulie B join you. You guys talked about WrestleMania 14, and I saw a lot of great feedback about that. But I'm excited today to talk about 5 years later, WrestleMania 19. It's hard to believe this was 20 years ago in Seattle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And there's been a lot of moving parts, on that show. And of course, we can look back historically and know this was the end of the Austin run. And we know he popped up here and there and all that for some fun and rowdiness, but this is really the end of Stone Cold Steve Austin as a full-time professional wrestler. And it feels like a bit of a passing of the guard between, the old guard, if you would, of the Rock and Austin era. And now, hey, it's Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar's time. A lot to unpack here. Let's just jump right into it. We're coming off of No Way Out, which we covered last month in the archives. But right out of the gate, it's reported that Paul Heyman was being removed from his position as lead writer of SmackDown. And that's a position he held since the prior summer. And this happens when you're just weeks away from the biggest event of the year. This had to be a pretty big time story behind the scenes. What do you remember of this?
Well, I was a little surprised. I thought Paul did a really good job creatively on SmackDown. I was surprised that it happened. Like I said, I thought he did a good job. But sometimes Paul can be his own worst enemy because he's so headstrong in his beliefs, which is a great trait to have, obviously. But it just added to a very hectic and unpredictable weekend, to be honest about it. So, but I think we're seeing now that the influence that Heyman has on creative is positive.
Yes.
And he's done a great job of crafting the head of the family and all that good stuff. So they've done a wonderful job in building Roman Reigns. Is it time for Roman Reigns to step aside and somebody else win like Cody? And then, who knows? We'll see. But it should be fun. But that whole weekend was crazy. There's a reason that Lesnar and Angle, yeah, sorry, got that spot at the end of the show. But we weren't sure Austin was going to be what he had in the tank after his health ordeal that weekend. So, and he didn't want anybody to know that this was it for him. He didn't want to adversely affect the perception of the match. He didn't want the retirement to trump, what was going on. That was Steve's unselfishness. He just wanted everybody to focus on the match, and I think they did. And it's funny too that it never leaked that I can recall to any significance, Conrad, that this was it for old Stone Cold.
Well, let's talk about Heyman, because it's written in the Torch that it wasn't necessarily one incident that led to his dismissal. Quote, Heyman has gotten increasingly less reliable when it came to making deadlines and returning phone calls in a timely fashion. And there were whispers that perhaps Kevin Dunn was the biggest adversary for Paul Heyman. And there's a report to the Torch that says, that's just spin. Trying to create a bad guy in this situation, but in reality, it's not that simple. This was Vince McMahon's decision. He didn't make that decision just because one person sometimes butted heads with Heyman or didn't agree with him philosophically. Reliability. It's a word you talk about a lot. Do you remember that being an issue for Heyman in this era?
Yeah, a little bit. Paul just got too much on his plate. Hitting the deadlines are important, because it affects so many people as it trickles down. So, I think that was probably a key issue. And, and Paul didn't have a lot of friends. He's in a lot better place right now politically than he was then, obviously. And so, but I thought Paul did a hell of a job. Still think he's doing a hell of a job. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him that I gave him a start in announcing, got him on TV. So it was a interesting week, Connie, to say the least. It was just very harrowing. A lot of unanswered questions and, how's this guy going to feel and so forth. And Steve had his incident, dehydration and all that stuff, just too much pressure on him. I know after the show was over, he told me he felt like he had the weight of the world off his chest.
Wow.
He was just very relieved that they got through it, and he put Rock over, and again I thought they had a very solid match, and it did what it was supposed to do. So tough weekend, especially when you're a Stone Cold guy, and which I am then and still am.
It's a tough weekend for everybody involved who's got the injury bug going around. We know Edge is going to be out for a full year with his neck surgery. Kurt Angle is physically destroyed, and we're just doing all we can to just get him through this match. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, is this injury bug that's bit you guys so big here, is this really a result, or maybe the culmination rather, of all the riding hard you guys did 98 through 02, and now it's just catching up with you? Or would you attribute this just to bad luck and bad timing?
I think it's bad timing, bad luck. It's not a bad way of describing it. But we, guys are just the way they wrestled and the different styles and just trying to be more aggressive, is part of the game at that point in time. And, and it's not a bad main event to see Lesnar and Kurt. Quite frankly, that was a hell of a match and it had a great build up. And so, it was what it was, buddy.
Let's talk a little bit about Scott Steiner. We've touched on him a little bit this year because 2003 was supposed to be a big year for him. It doesn't really pan out according to plan. Do you think originally, before we got to see what the matches look like, that Steiner and Hunter were going to have a 3-match series that would have involved WrestleMania? And then when the matches were less than, we made a pivot?
Yeah, maybe. Scotty just had health issues and,
right.
And he never was 100% that I can recall. And that's not knocking Scott Steiner. I mean, hell, he's trying to work through it, but he was in bad shape. And so, but him and Hunter was a game plan that was on the drawing board to get a multiple match series and a rivalry established between those two. So, it just unfortunately didn't work out for Scotty and our Hunter. So it was a interesting week, as I said, on so many fronts that we're discussing here today.
I also want to mention, speaking of health issues, that William Regal is going to appear on the Raw after No Way Out, and it's his last appearance for over a year due to some health issues. My man just can't catch a break. And speaking of a break, Goldust is going to get one, but is it a good one? This is the era where we see him debut the Tourette's gimmick. And of course, listen, it's a different time, a different era. I don't think this would ever happen today, but what did you think of this at the time? I mean, clearly we're going for comedy. Maybe it's not in the best taste, but what did you think back then?
I thought it was kind of funny, actually. I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah.
He was good at that role. Goldust is such an underappreciated talent in a lot of ways. He mastered that gimmick. He took ownership of his character, and I thought that was always entertaining to me. I'm a Goldust guy. I'm so happy that we have Dustin in AEW because he's really a good coach. He's got his school that's doing well, and if you're interested in training or want to get in the wrestling business, there's worse things you could do than to train with Dustin Rhodes, quite frankly. But I enjoyed it. It was just like you said, it was a let me up thing. It was just simply, how can he master this new addition to his persona? And he did. It was entertaining as hell. So I think that whole thing came about. Todd Pettengill used to do a little routine where he would do when that thing started. He was just entertaining as hell backstage with the Tourette's thing, and I know it really entertained Linda McMahon. She thought that was hilarious. It was hilarious. So, but it was built for comedy, and that's what Dustin delivered. He delivered it very well.
Somebody else who delivered is Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. It feels like these guys had just one segment on the highlight reel, and that's all it took for you to see, hey man, these guys have instant chemistry. Did you know that going in? Like, hey man, these guys are just going to be magic together.
Yeah. I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. They both were hungry, and they both had their own individual agenda. And that agenda was stealing the show. So, it didn't surprise me that, Jericho and Shawn had such great chemistry. You know, territory guys, lifers, you know, both were athletic as hell. Both wanted to steal the show, as I mentioned. So it was an interesting, matchup, and one that I thought was really going to add to the card. And it did, I thought.
No doubt it did. The other piece of chemistry that I don't think a lot of people may have seen coming is The Rock and Hurricane doing some backstage promos together. This is really kind of simple stuff, but man, it really allows Hurricane to be brushing up against some characters he might not normally brush up against. It was a great piece of business for Hurricane. And listen, a lot of times there's guys who say that, oh, this guy was selfish and that guy was only in it for himself and blah, blah, blah. But The Rock doing this for a guy that he's probably not going to have a big serious feud with.
Right.
But it makes for great television, and it's great for Hurricane, right?
It did make for great TV, and Hurricane deserved the opportunity.
Yes.
Great company guy, a real pro's pro. And as you mentioned, none of that would have occurred if it hadn't been for Rock. You know, Rock was there to serve, shall we say. And what he did for Hurricane was tremendous, I thought.
No, I loved it too. We should also mention that Hulk has only been back for like 3 weeks, and there's already some drama according to the Torch. Hulk Hogan was advertised for the February 25th SmackDown in London, Ontario, 2 days after the No Way Out pay-per-view, but didn't appear. Advertising was changed the morning of the show, indicating he would not be there as he had been advertised for weeks. Hogan had never agreed to work the Tuesday taping. Instead, he asked for that day off since the next day his 14-year-old daughter was going to be performing in front of talent scouts who were traveling from all over the country to see her. There was some talk that if Vince felt it was vital for Hogan to be there, he could have taken a charter jet right after the tapings back to Tampa, but they opted instead for the storyline where McMahon didn't invite Hogan to the show, building up his return to the following week's SmackDown. This sort of thing is what led to the big blow up between Ric Flair and Eric Bischoff just a few years prior. Rick, of course, wanted to go support Reed in his amateur wrestling bout, and Hogan here wants to support his daughter in her quest to be a professional singer, be a big time celebrity type singer, and is handled completely differently.
Bad communication, Connie.
Yes.
It wasn't communicated well, and you know, Hogan got a lot of heat on him for that. I don't think it was all his fault. I can't blame a father for wanting to support his children. And he never committed to the date. So all of a sudden he becomes the bad guy, does Hogan, and probably undeserved, quite frankly. So, you know, it was just one of those unfortunate situations that the folks that bought tickets thought they were going to see him, and he wasn't there. So, that's the way it works sometimes. You know, it's just, communication is a key. And, apparently as a group, we didn't communicate extremely well. And, how do you not communicate well when you're dealing with Hogan? I mean, God dang, it's not like he's a unknown guy. You want him to be on your card. You want him to be a part of it. But it just didn't work out that way, you know, and that's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about the whole Hunter and and Scott Steiner thing, and was it a pivot? It feels like a pivot, because what we're going to do now is do a battle royal to decide who's going to get a world title shot against Hunter at WrestleMania. And it's going to come down to The Rock and Booker T. But what's interesting about this is Booker has really just been doing tag matches with Goldust. So it feels as if it is a pivot, because Booker's the guy who throws The Rock out. I think a lot of people assumed, well, if it's for a world title shot at WrestleMania, The Rock's going to win. That's not what we get. Booker gets the opportunity. We couldn't call it. That makes it special. That makes it fun. And it also gives us a baby face to take on Hunter for the world title. I'm excited that Booker got the shot, although I have to admit, before we even talk about it, didn't really like the story or the build.
Yeah. Well, it was quick. It was a turnaround, and it didn't have a long build.
Right.
And so you're counting on the battle royal to solve all those ills. I was happy for Hunter, or excuse me, I was happy for Booker.
Yes.
That he got an opportunity. He'd earned it. He was a talented, and still is a talented guy. I enjoy his commentary. And he does a good job, really good job in that area. So, it was an interesting thing, but I'm glad that Hunter, or excuse me, I'm getting hung on Hunter, was, got the opportunity. And, like I said, Booker had earned that opportunity.
Yes.
I thought it worked out really well. So, and I didn't know how good the match would be with he and Hunter, because they hadn't had it, but I thought it was a good decision booking wise that Booker got the deal. Cause like you said, I didn't ever expect Booker to eliminate Rock.
Yeah.
I didn't think anybody would eliminate Rock. It seemed like a layup, but anyway, it was. I didn't have a problem with the booking whatsoever. I really didn't. I thought Booker deserved the opportunity, and it was a big deal for him. So, and as I looked at all of our talent, if it was a big deal for our talent, it was a big deal for me, because I was their guy. And so, and I was always proud to be their guy. So it was interesting that how it worked out, but I think at the end of the day, it worked out for the best.
Let's talk about Rhino. He's going to be coming back off an injury. He's going to return to SmackDown to team up with Chris Benoit to take on Shannon Moore and Matt Hardy. Rhino had been one of the top guys over in ECW, their former world champion. And when the final curtain fell on ECW, I think he had both belts. Did you see in Rhino what Paul Heyman saw in Rhino? Did you see him as a potential top guy? And for whatever reason,
probably not as lofty expectations that Paul did. Rhino's a hell of a good guy. Terry's he's solid, and you could rely on him. But I couldn't say I joined Paul's admiration society for Rhino, because I didn't see it in him yet. But I enjoyed his work. But I didn't have the expectations of Rhino's success that Paul Heyman did. And that may have been my fault. I just thought we needed a little bit something else from him. And, but hey, he's another guy that deserved the break. He's another guy that came to work on time, and he worked hard. He was a team player, and I'm glad he got the opportunity to do what he did. Quite frankly, it kind of put him on the map.
Let's talk about Nathan Jones. He's going to come out here to save The Undertaker from an A-Train and Big Show beatdown. But unfortunately, he throws a kick, trips, and misses completely. This has been a pretty famous internet meme over the years. And Bruce has been pretty honest about saying, man, we didn't always do right by the old Undertaker at WrestleMania. And I'm sure as he's laying there with visions of King Kong Bundy and Giant Gonzalez dancing through his head, thinking, really? The Nathan Jones thing looks like a hell of a star, has a great backstory, checks all the boxes. And then, as Bruce likes to say, the damn bell had to ring.
Well, Bruce is right on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bruce is right on that deal. Yeah. Nathan checked every box as far as the physical appearance, demeanor, his look, all those things. but he was so inexperienced. He that was the problem I think we had. I think we pushed him a little too quick, and he never rose to the level that we needed him to be. He's just inexperienced.
Right.
I'm not saying he didn't work hard. His skill set was just limited, and that was only because of time and all that stuff. So, Nathan was just an amazing look. When we first hired him, it was like, golly, this is a can't miss deal.
Right.
He's big. He's athletic. He's got great facials. You don't find too many guys that are athletic at 6'10", quite frankly. But after that, you check those boxes. This is what he got left, and we didn't have a lot left with Nathan. He needed time. He needed experience. He needed ring time, and so that was kind of where that happened in my view. It's just it just wasn't great. It just wasn't great, and we thought Nathan could be great, and we were wrong.
Well, you weren't wrong about Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle being a great idea, but there was a lot of criticism at the time, especially when it came to things like this main event of SmackDown, where it was Lesnar against Haas and Benjamin, who were going by Team Angle at the time. It's a handicap match with a stipulation that if Lesnar won, he'd get a cage match with a member of Team Angle of his choice. But instead of picking Kurt, he decides on Heyman. There are lots of fans online who were saying, they've got two of the best technical wrestlers of all time here in the company, and they're not letting them touch before WrestleMania. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, knowing just how banged up Kurt Angle was, it doesn't feel as if that was a creative decision as much as it was, hey, we just got to get the match in the ring. Kurt's in bad shape. They can't touch, right?
No, it didn't make a lot of sense for them to touch, and it built the anticipation. The payoff was coming at the event, and as it worked out, because of Austin's health issues, not knowing exactly what we had in Steve, we knew the match with Steve and Rock was going to be great. It just couldn't not be. And Austin wanted to return the favor. He'd gotten 2 WrestleMania wins at 15 and 17. And so, it was time to repay that debt, so to speak, and get Rock over. So that's kind of where we were. I thought it was very honorable for Austin to not want to make his retirement or his last match the story, because it could very well have been the story, but that's not what Steve wanted. And considering he was doing the honors, and it was going to be his last match officially, even though, as you said, Conrad, we would see more of these guys. It was just really, it was really challenging to get this thing going. And you got Kurt hurt, you got Austin sick, and how's he going to do? There were a lot of unanswered questions for us going into that show at Safeco Field.
We got to talk about something that I'm sure you were happy about, or maybe not happy about. Maybe it's one less thing to worry about. The World, the old restaurant in Times Square, WWE lets everybody know we're shutting it down. No more restaurant, no more nightclub. It's dead. And you were around for a lot of the, side ventures that Vince tried. The XFL, the WBF. Where does the World rank for you as a misstep? Was it ever a good idea and you just didn't have the right folks? Or what would you say about the World?
I don't think it was a bad idea, quite honestly. It was, you had a great location. And we had that in Times Square. It was great. So I looked at it as a positive step when we first opened it.
Right.
I thought it made sense, to kind of have a little museum, restaurant. The location, as I mentioned over and over, is great. So I was hopeful that it would be a sustainable resource. And, we put our best foot forward. We had talent go there. We got live footage from there on more than one occasion. We tried to make it a special place so where if you were in New York City and you were a wrestling fan, that this would be a destination for you. That's what we were hoping. And so it just, at the end of the day, I think that was also the manager of that place got popped for
embezzlement, right?
Embezzlement. So there are a lot of roadblocks that we had to overcome. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, we couldn't overcome them all.
We should mention that in total, it looks like a $26.7 million loss. A loss like that has to be reconciled somewhere. Do you remember that affecting the talent budget?
No.
Okay.
No. The talents were not penalized for a bad business decision.
Okay.
They just weren't. And it didn't affect their pay or the available funds to pay them or whatever. Talent always, it's a great thing about Vince. He always, the talent always came first. So, it didn't affect anything in that regard. It just was for the bottom line of the company in general. It was devastating.
We talked a little bit about Kurt Angle. Did you think that this could be a devastating deal? I mean, for him to be as injured as he was, there's a lot of reports in the newsletters at the time that they're pessimistic the match could even happen. We're just weeks away. And I'm curious, it's not like it's his fault. He's trying to gut it out and he wants to wrestle. He wants his opportunity to be in a WrestleMania main event, and Lord bless him, he deserves it.
Yeah.
But you've probably, as a talent roster manager, if you will, you've got to have a plan B. You've got to have a backup plan, right? Was there a backup plan?
Not that I can remember.
Yeah.
We all believed that Kurt was going to gut it out and was going to get through this thing. He and Brock had good chemistry. They enjoyed each other. Two shooters, two big time amateurs. And so no, I thought that was we were hoping that Kurt could just get through the match, and he did. They did. I think is this the match where Lesnar did the shooting star press?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and from about a mile away.
Yep.
So that was I might not have suggested that spot, but that wasn't my area of expertise. That was the agents and coaches, whatever you want to call them. That's their deal. But we all thought that Kurt could manipulate it if he didn't do crazy things or call crazy spots. So I was never afraid that match would not go on. And I was never afraid that match would not be great. I don't know if it was a great match. It was a good match. And it closed the show in a big way. So, and two guys, especially Lesnar, getting that bump up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I thought good. I thought timing was good. I hated the fact that Austin and Rock did not get to close the show because I thought that was the match, and it is finish of a huge story. You got a one-on-one main event at WrestleMania and WrestleMania 15 and then 17 in Houston, and then now this. I thought it was a good storytelling, quite frankly. But I just wish those guys could have closed the show. I thought they deserved to close the show. Not that Kurt and Brock didn't, but you just expect when you got Austin and Rock on the card that they're going to be the main event.
Yeah.
And they would have been the main event if it had not been for Steve's illness and his hospitalization on the night before the show.
We should also talk about this injury bug. It's not just affecting Kurt Angle. It's also going to affect Batista and Randy Orton. They've been right at the center of this television program for a while, often brushing up against Ric Flair and Triple H as part of Evolution. And now in the same match, they both go down. Batista is going to suffer a torn triceps muscle. It's going to keep him out of action for 4 months. And it's not exactly known what caused that tear, But boy, there's some heat on Orton's injury. It happens when Bubba Ray Dudley lands on his foot after a double flapjack by Bubba and Devon. And according to the Torch, when Orton went up for the move, he flailed a bit in the air. This caused his feet to get crossed. So when he landed, Bubba landed back first on top of his foot, and that broke his ankle and several bones in his feet and severely dislocated his big toe. It's painfully obvious that Orton is struggling here. He's hurt bad. You could just see it all over his face.
Yeah.
And this is a story that's been told for years that Batista and Randy Orton blamed Bubba for this. Do you recall this? Did you have to deal with this in talent relations?
It's hard to recall back this far, but I'm sure they were both disappointed in how it all worked out. Blaming Bubba might not have been the appropriate thing to do, but I can understand their angst and their apprehensions. But I don't think you can blame Bubba on all that misery. But in any event, the talents did, and we got past it. I guess we got past it as best we could. But these injuries are just things you can't count on, man.
Right.
You can't predict them. It's hard to manage them. So I was a big fan of all those guys we just mentioned, Orton and Batista. Two guys I hired, signed, and put them in OVW way back in the day, along with some other top guys, Cena, Lesnar, Shelton, among others, that passed through OVW, which did a hell of a job for us. Al Snow was just a good coach, good teacher, and so he's a talented guy. I'll say that. And he was talented there with those guys. He took care of them like they were his own, and they were his own. So always thankful that we had Al Snow on our team to help mentor these cats.
We should also talk about King of the Ring. It's reported in the newsletters at the time that it's going to be dropped. And now we're going to go to brand exclusive pay-per-views outside of the big four, which of course would be the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. But the other shows are going to be brand exclusive. And that means bye-bye to King of the Ring. What'd you think of King of the Ring as a concept? Were you in favor of that? I know some people don't like quote unquote tournaments in wrestling.
Yeah, I did. I like tournaments. They're real. It's an established process in sports. Final Four is a good example. This is the one out there in today's marketplace. March Madness is huge, and it's a tournament. I like tournaments. Personally, I just feel that they're very sport conscious. So, I don't know what to say about that. I like the King of the Ring. King of the Ring put Austin on the map, for example.
Yeah.
And that meant they put us on the map. So I like the King of the Ring concept, and I was surprised when it was dropped.
Let's mention that the next Raw from Long Island starts the build for Booker T and Triple H. It's been talked about a lot over the years. A lot of people felt like there were some unnecessary racial overtones to the build. And a lot of us say this now with the benefit of hindsight. You were there watching at ringside. Did you feel that way at the time?
A little bit. I think we took a road that we didn't need to take without saying it. I didn't like it in that respect. Didn't think it had a place, to be honest with you. So, but I know Hunter's not a racist.
Right.
He's a heel. And he was trying to get personal with the Booker T. And one of the avenues of that being personal was some quote unquote racial overtones. I just didn't think it was necessary. I don't believe that race or religion have any place in pro wrestling. I just don't. I don't think we need it. I don't think the world needs it. We didn't need to point out that Booker was a black man. Hunter wasn't. The fans can decide all that stuff that they choose. So I didn't like the the innuendos of the racial aspect of it, quite frankly.
Sure.
So, it made me uncomfortable a little bit. Maybe that's what it's supposed to do.
Do you remember there being any backlash amongst the talent roster? Was this a topic of discussion backstage at all at the time?
No, I think guys were basically happy for Booker that he was finally getting an opportunity to play in the last match on a major show, and Booker had a lot of respect from the talents. He had paid dues and had paid them often. So I think most people were probably supportive of Booker's opportunity that he had earned and deserved, and I agree with that. I was happy for Booker because he got his flowers, shall we say, what the kids say today. He got his flowers by being booked in the match, and I was happy for him. I really was.
Well, the build for Austin and Rock starts on this same show where Austin is going to dispatch 3-minute warning in a segment, and Rock is standing behind him once he was finished. At this point, did you know this was going to be Austin's swan song, or is that not apparent until we get closer to the actual show?
Well, I think it was more apparent as far as my dialogue with Steve. He was just more concerned about it not getting out.
Right.
And he didn't want it to have an adverse effect on the card or the perception of the card or what have you. And so, like I said, I admire Steve for keeping that under wraps. And, and we all kept it under wraps, and when he went in the hospital, the only two people there were with Steve were Vince and me. And we were there pretty much all night and trying to figure out what's next. How do we handle this? And so you handle it the best you can. Steve wanted to be kept a secret, and that's what we did. And I admire his intentions and what he was trying to do. He was trying to make sure that nothing but the match mattered, not the fact that Steve was wrestling his last match, which would adversely affect the perception of this contest. It would affect the outcome. It would affect the potential finish and things of that nature. So, it wasn't a shock that Steve did the honors for Booker, for Rock. To me, that was a no-brainer. And it worked out just fine. And Rock deserves to get the win back. And Steve was the kind of guy that wanted to do business the right way. And he did.
Well, we know that the big controversy with Hogan and was he supposed to be here or wasn't he supposed to be here comes to a head the next day, or the next week rather, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. There is a big public debate, a promo battle, if you will, between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon, and they're discussing their history together. Of course, Vince is saying that he created Hulkamania, and he's responsible for all of this success. Of course, we're setting up this match today, and Hogan says something like, "Hey man, if it wasn't for my testimony, you'd still be in jail."
God almighty.
And if Hogan loses, he has to retire. So we're setting up the match here. What'd you just think of the decision to say, we're going to go with Hogan versus McMahon?
Well, on the paper, it's pretty damn attractive. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
It really is unpredictable. I admire Vince for pulling back the curtain and saying, I'm going to wrestle Hogan. To me, it made sense, considering the heat that they had and the animosity that they had built up over the years and have been manipulated, because that angle has stayed in place for a long time.
Right.
And so I thought on paper, Conrad, that booking made sense, and it's so unique and unpredictable. It was something that I think that the fans in general were curious about, and curious enough about it to help give them another reason to buy this pay-per-view.
Well, it's something that's not without controversy. These promos back and forth. There was raw footage. This is the era of a taped SmackDown, And of course, they're still beaming that satellite feed somewhere. And somebody online managed to capture that footage. And there's footage out there of Hogan messing up his lines and the crowd reacting to him. It didn't feel as if it clicked. I mean, every now and again, when you see these guys or you see two guys go against each other in a promo battle like this, you can just feel the magic and the electricity. This felt like we were trying to force it, at least from a live perspective. Is that something where sometimes that doesn't matter? I mean, is instant chemistry important, I guess is what I'm trying to get to, or could this have gone so poorly that we wanted to rethink the idea completely? Or when Vince sort of has it that this is what we're going to do in his mind, he's going to see it through no matter what.
Yeah, pretty much the latter.
Okay.
On paper, again, I think on paper, the match made sense. It was curious. It was interesting. Hard to ascertain if Vince is going to screw Hogan and win, or Hogan is going to get his, Vince will get his comeuppance at the hands of Hulk Hogan. Again, it was just such an unpredictable environment to visit that I thought it would be curious enough to help sell pay-per-views. And I think it did, quite frankly.
Let's also mention that this show, which is going to be a super loaded show, is going to have Austin hitting a 4.5 rating for the company. This is an era where ratings are starting to dip, and just the announcement of Austin and his appearance gets a 4.5, but the week after it does fall to a 4.0. There has long been a discussion of the quote unquote lapsed fan, a fan who used to tune in every single week religiously, and then slowly but surely they watched less and less. When you see it jump up to a 4.5 and then come back down to a 4.0, is it disheartening in the office, or is it something where it's just another day, man? Just do your best, and it is what it is.
Pretty much the latter.
Yeah.
Again. It just made sense. Like I said, I was for that booking. I think it was curious, as I said. People that were interested in it. How's it going to be pulled off? What can these two battle-scarred veterans, speaking of Hogan and Vince, what can they do? What will they produce in this environment? Because you got to understand, they're neither one of Briscoe and Funk. They had to have a gimmick match, a special attraction type match. And I thought they did, and I thought they pulled it off.
I really enjoyed this. Even the show that's a 4.0, this is where Hurricane gets the win over The Rock, thanks to a little interference from Stone Cold. This was a fun show, but I could see how maybe from an advertising standpoint, it's not as marquee. But you're telling a story, and it was a great story. I really enjoyed it. Somebody who maybe wasn't enjoying this era as much, The Undertaker. There's even a workout shown on TV of The Undertaker trying to teach Nathan Jones in the ring, quote unquote, before the show starts. The idea that you peel back the curtain, and this is the Undertaker era where we're the American badass. So we don't have that, black coat and hat mystique, but still you're showing him sort of work out with fans in the crowd before the show starts, trying to work through some things and practice some things. Is this pulling back the curtain a little too much, or is this more like Rocky?
Pardon me. Yeah, I think so. That could have been done earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Look at the people in the crowd. You didn't need that.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah, I didn't need that. That was just Taker trying to protect his ass.
Right.
I don't blame him. I mean, look at Nathan's a huge man.
Yes.
And you got to be careful on how you manage. Look at the size of this dude. So him and Undertaker looking eye to eye. So that puts them both around close to that 7 foot mark. And Nathan was so distraught as far as the stress was concerned. He was not ready. He was not ready mentally and physically ready to go out there and have a main event level match with Taker. So, it was just, that was a tough booking. Again, it looked great on paper. They make a great poster, 8x10, blah, blah, blah. But Nathan was just not ready. And that's not indicting Nathan Jones. It's just the fact that, he got fast tracked and he didn't get enough training. He didn't have a regimented workouts that where he could work with somebody that was skilled and talented. I mean, we're still going through how to do a flat back bump.
Right.
Just basic stuff. And so, but again, on paper, it looked great, but in reality, not so great.
Reported in the Torch that Jeff Hardy went to you directly to have every other weekend off from house shows. He knew it would be a massive pay cut, but you granted him this request. How important was Jeff to the company for you to give him this time off? This doesn't feel like something you would do for everybody. Of course, you're allowing him to pursue his passion for music, but I'm sure somebody somewhere wasn't happy about this. What do you remember? Yeah.
Well, everybody wants another weekend off. I just thought it was good for Jeff. Jeff was kind of a fragile guy, and he made ridiculous errors, mistakes. And of course, I think a lot of that was influenced by drugs and alcohol. And many of us weren't aware of how severe that issue was with Jeff, but it was serious. So I'm thinking maybe I can give him some relief and we can extend his shelf life. That was the bottom line there, Conrad. I made the decision, and I'm not sure Vince even was aware of it. I didn't go through Vince with everything I did, which is great. So he trusted me.
Right.
And I wanted Jeff Hardy to make it because we knew what we had with Jeff Hardy. Mm-hmm. He is a star. And how do we do all we can to extend his shelf life, as I mentioned earlier? So if getting him a weekend off was going to get that done, then let's do it. And by not knowing he's not available, it could all work. It could all be planned out. That's why they make erasers. He got Nick stayed off the card, and somebody else got his spot, and they got a payday, and Jeff was home trying to regroup, shall we say?
Sure.
So I thought it was the right thing to do. Was it traditional? No. I did a lot of things, Conrad, that weren't traditional in that role because I tried to upgrade how we treated talent and respecting the talent and so forth and so on. So I think that helped us a lot. I don't know at the end of the day how that every other weekend thing was playing out with Jeff. So I had a real I had a gut feeling that we could help him if we went this route. Yes, it was non-traditional. I'm sure there were some guys that said, well, I'd like to have some time off. Let's fucking ask for it.
Right.
I very seldom, if I get enough notice or we're not going back in there and changing cards after they've already been released, I'll work with you. I want you to see your kid's little league game, or I want you to go to the dance recital or celebrate a birthday or an anniversary or whatever. Because I've always believed that if you get a guy home, the more he or she can be home, the better positive attitude you receive when they come back.
Right.
They just left home. They got to see their family. They got to be a human, a husband, a father. And I'm all for all that stuff. When they go home and they come back, I want you to come back positive. I want you to come back ready to work, ready to go. And that was the goal there, Conrad. And again, like I said, it's not something Bill Watts would have done or Ole Anderson would have done or probably Dusty would have done. I'm just saying, I don't know that. But it's unlikely because that wasn't the tradition. And I broke a little tradition there, and I did it more often than not. I did it several times. You want your talent to be productive and happy. When they are, you get better matches. You have less issues on the road. It's just a better win-win all the way around. And that's what I was hoping it would be with Jeff in the situation. Jeff Hardy had proven on more than one occasion, Connie, as you can vouch for, he was a star.
Yes.
He was, and he wasn't one of the Hardy boys. That was the key thing too. You know, I hired he and Matt back in the day for little or no money because they were just teenagers, and they're making their own wrestling gear. They're using their late mother's sewing machine, and things like that affected me in a positive way. That's how badly they wanted to be in the business and to contribute and to be a player. So once we got past the separation anxiety of the tag team being featured and Jeff being featured, we were on the right track. Jeff Hardy could have been as big a star in that era as we had if we could just keep him sane and healthy and on track. And that was a challenge at times.
Well, if you're looking to get your sleep on track, there's nobody better to help than our friends over at Sleep Me. I've been using mine for years now and absolutely love it and can't vouch for it enough. Prior to using Chili Sleep, which is now called Sleep Me, man, I was sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night. I would fuss and fight with the covers. I'd be up and down. Not anymore. I have no trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, and I'm sleeping 7 or 8, sometimes 9 hours a night. It feels incredible to just wake up feeling refreshed and ready to attack your day. And I know I'm getting the right kind of sleep, that deep REM sleep, because I have bright, vivid, colorful dreams. I didn't dream before at all. Sleep Me is going to make this happen for you. And they do this because your body needs a lower core temperature to promote deeper and more restorative sleep. And this is like a smart thermostat for your bed. This is a sleep system that's water-based, but no, it's not a water bed. But water does have these amazing thermal properties. And you can even have 2 different temperature zones. Like I sleep a little cooler than my wife does. She wants to be a little warmer than I do. Well, this is a temperature controlled mattress topper that fits over your existing mattress and provides you your ideal sleep temperature. Now, they just launched something brand new. I can't wait to tell you about. It's the Dock Pro sleep system. It's the ultimate cooling power. And when you pair it with the new Sleep Me app, you'll get real-time temperature adjustments based on your current sleep activity because they've created something called Hyper AI technology. That's right. It's the industry's first sleep tech that tracks and optimizes your sleep temperature, and it does it for you in real time. That's right. You can get the best sleep of your life with AI-driven technology. It's not just for goofy memes on the internet. It's going to help you sleep better too, man. Head on over right now to sleep.me/JR to learn more and save 25% off the purchase of any new Dock Pro, Uller, or Cube sleep system. Now, this offer is available exclusively for Grilling JR listeners and only for a limited time. That's sleep, sleep.me/JR to take advantage of our exclusive discounts and wake up feeling refreshed every day. Jim, sleep is critically important, and Sleep Me checks all the boxes, don't they?
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. And you're right about sleep being so important in our lives. I think sometimes we just take it for granted.
Yes.
It's bedtime.
Yes.
I hope I have a good night's sleep. Hell, the other day, Conrad, I fell asleep on my couch, and I woke up at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
My fat ass rolled off the couch. I went to bed and slept till 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was wore out. Just wore out. And, when you're traveling as much as I do on a regular basis, which is every week, you got to deal with this shit. And this is the way you got to have sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You got to recharge your batteries. You got to get your game face back on, and you got to regenerate your energy. And you can do that by getting a good night's sleep. And this Sleep Me is the way to do that. So I wholeheartedly recommend it. Give it a shot. never discount the value or the importance of a good night's sleep. It's that simple.
Well said. Sleep.me/JR. And we know we weren't sleeping on WrestleMania 19 here. It's written in the torch that after the MRI comes back, all of creative is in a panic. Kurt Angle's not going to make it. What should we do? And just 1 week later, he says, guys, I'm feeling better. I'm going to gut it out. I'm going to be fine. I'm in. But there's been a lot of conjecture over the years, Jim, that maybe the backup plan could have been Chris Benoit. But Vince McMahon at the time didn't see Benoit at that level.
No, unfortunately.
Now, of course, we know a year later, that's going to be different. WrestleMania 20 is going to become Benoit's time. But do you think if there was a backup plan, it would have wound up being Benoit, or would you have tried to pull the Goldberg card? I mentioned that because it comes out right before WrestleMania that Goldberg has finally come to terms with you guys. And we know we're going to see him the night after WrestleMania on Monday Night Raw. But in an alternate universe, could we have seen Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, or was there not enough time to tell that story?
There wasn't enough time to tell the story, and you didn't want to just throw away the opportunity for that first impression. And we were looking for that big first impression. So, but the Benoit idea certainly is intriguing that you mentioned. Again, we talk in hushed tones sometimes about Benoit simply because of how he ended his life and his family's life. And there's nothing can be said to justify that. Oh, he had CTE. He murdered his son and his wife, and then he killed himself. And it was horrific to say that to manage a team through that situation, for example. So I'm a big believer, Connie, that if Kurt could do it, he was going to do it. It was important to him. He won, as he says many times. He won the gold medal in the Olympics with a broken friggin' neck.
Right.
So he said he understands how to process pain. And to get through something like he did the Olympics. So we were hoping that same mindset would be in place here. And, that's the difference in when you recruit legitimate athletes and not bodybuilders. These legitimate athletes understand how to manage pain and how to deal with it. And so we had every confidence in the world that when Kurt said he was ready to go, that he could pull it off. At least that was our hope. Maybe it was wishful thinking.
Right.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But I never had a moment of too many moments of worry that Kurt was not going to be able to pull it off and fulfill his assignment. And I think also when Kurt and Lesnar found out they were going on last, I think that motivated both guys. That's a big deal. To close the show at WrestleMania is a big deal.
Yes, it is.
So we just thought he could pull it off, and he did. He did, and I thought they were a little bit too ambitious at times, and some of the things they tried. I don't think they need to leave their feet as often, take as many risks, but they did, and luckily they came through it.
Well, it all comes to a head right before WrestleMania. Of course, this is the most stressful time of the year. This company becomes a pressure cooker right before WrestleMania because everybody is wanting to do their best and be at their best. And there's a lot of pressure, and it boils over backstage where there's even a confrontation, as crazy as this sounds, between Brian Growitz and Paul Heyman. What do you remember about Brian and Paul getting into a dust up, if you will? Cause they both get suspended.
I forgot about that.
Isn't that crazy?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're both are brilliant guys, and they both are very headstrong about their own philosophical beliefs as it relates to this genre. But I have great respect for both guys. Brian's got a great book out that I encourage people to check out. Paul is just Paul.
Right.
And sometimes, and I told Paul, hey, look, you would not believe how many one-on-ones I have had in my career with Paul Heyman. He was challenging at times. And then I'd find out the story, and I'd go and I'd get him in front of me, and I say, what are you thinking? How do you expect to get to your end of your journey with this kind of interaction with the staff? It's just not going to happen, Paul. And you got to chill a little bit. But Paul has a very small chill ratio. He didn't chill often.
Right.
And he believed in what he was preaching. He believed in his philosophy. And more often than not, he was right. I mean, I don't know today how much Paul Heyman, how much creative freedom he has with Roman Reigns and his crew. I don't know. I don't talk to any of them. But I would suggest, based on what I see and what I hear, promo-wise, that Paul has significant influence in that story, which proves again that he's very, very bright. He's I enjoy his what's he call himself? The
wise man?
The wise man. Yeah. I think that's funny as hell. He is a wise man. I'm not knocking that, but it's just interesting, creative.
I love it.
The wise man. I think it fits. So I don't remember all the details about Brian and Paul. Knowing the personalities of both, I would say of the two guys' interaction, that Paul probably, and I wasn't there, that Paul was the loudest. Paul was the most verbally assertive, and sometimes that could come off really, really negative, because Brian's not a confrontational guy at all. So, and he and Paul had, they just had personality conflict on whatever those issues were. I had no idea what they were. But something creatively that Paul felt very strongly about, and Brian did not. So there's where you come. So somewhere along the way, the old rubber got to meet the road, and who's winning this argument? And unfortunately, it becomes like a competition. And I don't think that's good for business whatsoever.
We got to talk about the other confrontation that happened on the same doggone day, certainly more famous or maybe infamous. Ric Flair attacks Eric Bischoff backstage.
What the hell?
And this has been discussed a lot over the years. Bischoff has said that Rick was hooting and hollering at him when he was on the phone and raising his voice, and then started throwing quote unquote working punches. And then other people would say, no, it was an actual altercation and a dust up, and Arn Anderson's going to intervene and separate the two. And Vince meets with everybody and says, damn it, we're all going to be on the show tonight. It's business as usual. You can't do this in the building, sort of thing. And there's speculation in the torch that perhaps some of this is boiling over because Rick takes a look around and he sees, wait a minute, Hulk Hogan's got a big time match against Vince McMahon at WrestleMania, and I'm quote unquote just Hunter's manager. This is Bischoff's fault that I'm viewed this way because of what he did to me in WCW.
Wow.
And of course, I think Rick wrote in his book that he had Reed, who was going through the ranks and as an adolescent and struggling at times with how to overcome some of the adversity of being a kid with a high profile dad in athletics. And he felt like, hey man, if I want my son to stand up for himself, I got to do the same. Eric Bischoff's had an ass whooping coming for a long time. You're running talent relations. This falls under your purview. These are talent. What do you remember of this?
Or you got to put the fire out.
Yeah.
If not, you may still smolder. It may never go away. I don't know how their relationship is today whatsoever. Don't know. You know better than I, because you work with Eric every week on his outstanding podcast. And, hey, by the way, you and Eric and I are going to be we're going to make an appearance together.
We are indeed. We're going to be hanging out with our friends in Maryland. Of course, our old pal Dan McDivitt's going to be putting us together. It's going to be a big time, man. Love Baltimore and think the world of Dan McDivitt and Maryland Championship Wrestling. It's going to be fun.
And Jimmy Seafood.
Come on now. We'll be there. We got standing reservations.
So, we do. And I'm sure glad we do. Eric, well, I mean, look, they're both proud guys. They both have made major contributions to the business. They've both got a right to speak their mind. You try to let them get it all out. Don't hold anything back. Let's get everything out on the table so that we can attempt to not only identify this problem, which is easily done, but to solve this problem. You know, I remember Jimmy Johnson, the football coach, back in the day, saying that if I can't solve your problem, the only option I have left is to eliminate it. And I tell those guys, so if Vince can't rely on you and you're going to have another dust up, there's going to be an issue, it's going to cause drama, then somewhere along the way, he's going to say, screw this.
Right.
I'm not going to deal with it. And that, because we all know him very well. That's what he's going to do. Too much, too many roadblocks, too many hurdles, too many stories. Well, they got after it again or whatever. Those guys had to realize, and I'm sure that they did, that Vince is being pronoun boy, is only going to deal with this shit for so long. At that point, we're done.
Right.
And I am rendered helpless. I can't help you. And look, to have two talents, with the name identity and the skills and the ability to play a role in this fictional television show, why would I not want that?
Right.
They're just two more great players that you put in the game for your team. So that's kind of where I stood on that deal. It was hard. It was hard to make some sense out of this damn thing. But I'm glad that we did. But I remember that altercation. What I remember most vividly about it was Arn intervening. And speaking of Arn, of course, we know he lost his oldest son a few weeks ago. We're always thinking about him. He's such a great guy.
Yes.
Has contributed so much to our business. He was as valuable in the Four Horsemen configuration as anybody. He was the workhorse. Well, Arnold do it. Arnold would go the 30 minutes, or Arnold do this. So I love Martin Anderson, and I hope that he's healing from this horrible tragedy. But I do remember Arn intervening and stopping what was a very ugly fight.
Let's talk about something else as we get closer to WrestleMania that makes the news, that sticks out like a sore thumb all these years later. Tommy Dreamer gets added to the Raw writing team.
Yeah.
For 1 week. Wade would write, the official line is that Dreamer was removed because the office decided it was a conflict of interest for active wrestlers to work as writers.
I agree with that, Conrad, by the way. Excuse me for interrupting you. I don't think any active wrestler should ever be on the creative team.
I think we agree on that. Everybody agrees.
I think we agree on that. It's logical. It makes common sense that, because and then the thing, when you get wrestlers that start out in one role, and then because of their creative opportunities of their new role, they find themselves on television. They book themselves. And then you look at the back and you got a lot of guys that have been working their ass off and they're not booked. I don't like that. I don't think that's the way to go with this thing. So the way you stop all that shit is that the guys that are in creative, in management, so to speak, whatever the term you want to use, they don't need to be wrestling. And if they're a better wrestler than they are an agent, then make them a wrestler. And and take the agent responsibilities, the producer responsibilities away from them. But to finish your statement, but I wholeheartedly agree that creative people should not be active in-ring participants.
Let's also continue this report from Wade, because he says, meanwhile, there's talk that Dreamer was actually removed because he questioned gaps in storyline logic and things of that nature. There's also some talk that Michael Hayes wasn't happy about Dreamer being added to the team and may have gone out of his way to convince the others to have him removed. Dreamer appeared on Bite This and joked he was removed for suggesting he win every match at WrestleMania. So listen, he's at least got a good spirit about it, but do you think, perhaps he ruffled some feathers by pointing out there were storyline logic gaps, or is it just the old school, hey man, wrestlers shouldn't be in this conversation at all?
Well, two good points. First of all, wrestlers should not be involved. If Tommy was going to be put on the booking committee, and I have no doubt that he could have done a good job. But you also got to understand, you got to know your room.
Right.
And sometimes I think that might have been more of a culprit on this matter than not, Tommy being new and come in upsetting I don't want to say upsetting in a negative term, but readjusting the room, the talent, your creative team. So, I don't know, man. I don't know anything about the Michael Hayes component to this story at all. But those guys had a little comfort zone. They used to working with each other. They're in high pressure situations. They got a group together that they all believe they could count on. And I think maybe Tommy coming in was upset the apple cart a little bit. And, but that he could have contributed more, obviously, but he has to also understand, he had to understand the room, if that makes any sense. And I might be on the short side of that stick, but you got to ease in. I don't know that Tommy eased in, and it sounds good on paper. Oh, he's John Wayne. Well, you got to ease in.
Right.
And maybe somebody should have told him that.
Well, I'll tell you what, nobody needed to tell Eric Bischoff what to do after he had this altercation with Ric Flair. He goes out and has a match with Steve Austin the same night. Eric is one hell of a team player here, looking back. We should also mention that there's some changes happening in the company. It feels like the company's cooling off. Normally, as you guys are marching towards WrestleMania, you're going to have somebody on Letterman or The Tonight Show. Instead, we've got Vince McMahon going on the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn.
Yeah.
We're not on with Jay Leno or David Letterman. Rock and Austin aren't doing anything. The brand is cooling off for the mainstream. Could you feel that internally?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. We weren't as hot and as cool as we once were. And, it's just, sometimes brands cool off.
Yes, they do.
And you got to retool it. You got to huddle again, and let's put some more players in there. Let's change things a little bit. That's why I was encouraged that Booker T got an opportunity. We needed Booker T to be elevated, and having a main event at WrestleMania was certainly one option to do so.
Right. Well, we know that, it's not only cooling off from a mainstream perspective when it comes to, late night shows and the whatnot, but ratings are down too. The Go Home Raw before this big WrestleMania does a 3.44, and this is the lowest since the NFL was head to head for Monday Night Football. And this is just a few weeks after Austin's return, and we had that big 4.5. We're down more than a whole point. Ratings are eroding here, and that's happening on SmackDown too, but that's not totally SmackDown's fault. The Iraq invasion and coverage of it really preempted a lot of the networks on UPN. So it goes down to a 2.73, but it's easy to see the writings on the wall. Hey man, we're cooling off a little bit. And there's even some layoffs, including our old pal, Kevin Kelly. He had been working with the WWE for quite a time. In this era, he was,
look at that guy on the right. You're watching on YouTube.
It's a handsome fellow.
Oh man. Whatever happened to that coat and tie? Oh, no tie.
No tie at all. This is the collarless Jones. You look like a father now right there.
Collarless Jones. That's good. That's a good one, Connie. Hi, who are you? Why, I'm Collarless Jones.
There you go. I like that. Kevin Kelly, we know he's gone on to have quite a successful run in wrestling outside of WWE, including, he's the voice of New Japan now.
Yeah. Yeah. Does a great job. I like working. Kevin and I worked together a lot over the years.
Yeah.
And, I know it was a funny story, in hindsight, but he got heat on him with Kevin Dunn because of the spelling of his name.
Right.
I don't know if it was Kelley he wanted, or that's what they gave him. I'm not sure. But something about his last name spelling, and he made a bigger issue out of it than he probably should have. So he didn't start off on great footing. He always did a nice job. I don't ever remember him being late for work or anything along those lines. He's very, very professional. And he does a real good job now with New Japan. And I'm sure somewhere down the road, at least I hope, that we get to join forces again at some point in time. Time will tell. But Kevin Kelly is a very good pro wrestling announcer. And so I'm happy that he's found his home in New Japan. He's made it his home.
Yes.
And he's done a great job of helping build that brand, quite frankly.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're looking to build around the house, maybe you need the right sort of fuel. What I'm talking about, of course, is Factor. Power up for springtime with Factor. Boys and girls, it's America's #1 ready to eat meal kit. And this is a no-brainer, folks. You can get nutritious chef prepared meals delivered straight to your door, leaving you both time and energy to tackle, well, everything else on your to-do list. You can look and feel your best in time for warmer weather with calorie smart meals. Check it out. They're 550 calories or less. Maybe you're too busy to cook this time of year. Well, with Factor, you can skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, the prepping, and the cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you got to do is heat and enjoy. By the way, they got something for everybody, whether you're doing keto or vegan and veggie, calorie smart, or even the protein plus options. They're all prepared by chefs. They're all approved by dietitians. So each meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long. What I like most about Factor though, is you'll get out of that rut. And we're all in this at times. We just find ourselves eating the same thing over and over and over. Well, with 34 different chef prepared dietitian approved weekly options, there's always something new to try. Hey, they even got breakfast stuff too, man, like smoothies and egg bites. And they've got like 45 different snack options too. Maybe you're looking to save money and cut back on takeout. Well, why not get Factor instead? Not only is it cheaper, it's also faster. You'll be eating in just 2 minutes. So put that extra time and money into more fun things this time of year. And by the way, you know that because it's approved by dietitians and prepared by chefs, that all the ingredients are everything you want and nothing you don't want. So get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door, ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. And let me just tell you, I have it on good authority that a lot of the wrestlers you see on Monday night and Wednesday night and Friday night, and certainly this weekend, they're eating Factor. They're trying to eat clean. They want to make sure this is manageable. Factor makes it easy, and we want to make it easy for you too. Head right now to factormeals.com/JR50 and use the code JR50 and you'll get 50% off your first box. The code is JR50 at factormeals.com/JR50 and you'll get 50% off your first box. Jim, we've both had Factor. It's some damn good eating, isn't it, man?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And they take such pain and such pride in what they do. You're never going to get a bad meal.
Right.
And you're going to be eating healthy and balanced. That's my issue. I make bad decisions sometimes. And then I look back on the day and said, what did you eat today? And I get disappointed. There's no disappointment in Factor. You're going to get good stuff. You're going to get balanced food. You're going to put good stuff in, and that's going to produce even more good stuff. So check it out. 50% off your first box is pretty damn phenomenal.
Try it, man.
And I like that promo code JR50 because that may be the name of our next book. Time will tell.
I love that.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
Too. Thanks for doing it.
Let's talk about the next SmackDown angle. It's going to be Hogan and Vince with Mean Gene emceeing like the old days. And it ends with McMahon laying out Hogan with several chair shots, and Hogan gets a ton of color here. And Hogan is actually going to be forced to sign this contract to wrestle Vince using his own blood. Is that a little too far?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little dramatic. I thought maybe a little dramatic. It sounds good in a creative meeting, but there you go. That's it right there. It's a good visual.
Yeah,
I get that. But was it absolutely necessary? Probably not.
Right.
But it was a good, because it just basically told you that this match is going to be unique and it's going to be bloody. Simple as that. If that raises your curiosity level enough to motivate you to buy this pay-per-view, then we did good. And I think that's kind of the story there, because you knew it was going to be a bloodbath.
Well, we're getting ready for WrestleMania. So in our go home episode of Monday Night Raw, we've got Austin stunning both Test and Storm. Bischoff is going to come out and say he's got a court order that bans Austin from the arena. Austin gets arrested. So The Rock comes out and sings Jailhouse Rock to him. And with Austin gone later in the show, the Rock concert is set up. Austin's truck is going to hit the ring, and he's going to be followed by an ambulance into the building. And it's a swervy setup, because see, Hurricane is going to come out as the driver, and Rock is going to make fun of him, calling him the Hamburglar, and have him arrested. And as the police are taking Hurricane out, Austin comes from under a sheet in the bed of the truck and hits the ring. Austin's gone, or Rock is gone rather. So Austin's going to stomp that guitar, as you see right there, if you're watching with us on YouTube. But listen, we like the big trucks. We like the Rock concerts. We're doing what we can, but compared to the build from 01, which admittedly is unfair because one of the best main event builds of all time, this just feels less than. I mean, I know it's the two biggest stars in the company and maybe in the industry all time, but it feels like diminishing.
What would you suggest if you're the booker?
I don't know, but it feels like that
or
first one.
Physicality or what? I don't know. I was asking you.
Maybe don't do it. Like, I feel like if we've seen it before, it's like,
You talking about the match itself?
I'm talking about, the match itself. Like, I understand the need for a trilogy and all that, but I'm saying the build in 01 was so big, it doesn't feel like you could ever get there again.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe, but I still wholeheartedly agree that the match had to happen.
Yeah. I mean, if it's what Austin wants, I'm for it.
Yeah. It had to happen. So, we've done so much of those guys.
Right.
And I think that's why the thing came to an end, and it just happened to come to an end with Austin saying adios.
Right. Well, on this same episode of Monday Night Raw, we're going to do something we didn't normally do here. It's maybe a peculiar booking for the WWE at the time. It's Booker and Goldust teaming up to take on Triple H and Ric Flair. And this is just days before Booker T is going to wrestle for the world title against Triple H. And Booker and Goldust get the win. And they even bust open Hunter. So to have a babyface beating up a heel, leaving him bloody right before the big show, that's not something you guys normally did, but maybe it should have been a clue that Booker ain't winning on Sunday.
Might have been a clue if you want to think that deeply into it. But
right.
I had no issues with that. That's just old school booking.
Right.
You got the guys in the main event and a tag, and they could touch and get physical, and they really got physical. So, I like the tag, and I honestly thought that Flair, and of course I don't look to find out the finishes. Even today, I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. It's the match. It's the company that's got to come first. The match has got to be great. And so I thought Flair and Triple H would probably win, but I was wrong. And that's good to be wrong sometimes.
Absolutely. There's a tape on the last episode of SmackDown, a pre-tape of Roddy Piper talking about Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon being 20 years in the making. And on this same show, we would see Shane McMahon leading Vince through a workout, preparing for that WrestleMania match. And at this point, he'd been off TV for quite a while, since the end of the invasion, but I like this Rocky type montage. It's a throwback. This is good stuff, man.
Yeah, it was good. Good idea. Good execution. Excellent production. I think we're seeing that on Sunday nights on A&E. The pains that are taken in editing all those videos. Like I said, I spent my Sunday night as I normally do. If you want to find JR, if you want to call me, I generally can answer the phone on Sunday nights because I'm sitting on my couch watching A&E.
Right.
So, and they do such a terrific job, on these videos. They really do. So, and the Charlotte video was especially good in my view. I was surprised that they didn't mention her husband.
Yeah, he got one cameo at the very end, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, just at the very end.
Well, so I mean that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about marriage; it's about her.
Right.
I loved all that footage of the volleyball days, and
yes,
and all that stuff was cool. She's just that's the thing about it again. She was one of those. She would fit in that same category of all the guys I hired that had
football backgrounds and all that.
Yeah, yeah. So she was there. So it was good. It was really good.
What wasn't so good?
All I'm trying to say is that the editing for Vince's video was perfect. And it had the great camera angles and all that good stuff. He looked great considering how old he was at that point in time. He looked marvelous. So it just added to the mystique.
Well, there's some mystique around WrestleMania and the pressure gets to a lot of guys. I'm not exactly sure what caused it, but I know you were involved. So I want to talk about it. The night before this huge WrestleMania show, what internally you guys know, and maybe only a handful of you know, is going to be Austin's last match. It's reported he has a panic attack. And there's been lots of discussion that maybe he had just been drinking too many energy drinks. Maybe he was in his head. Maybe this was a panic attack. Maybe it wasn't, but he winds up with a hospital visit the night before the biggest show of the year.
Right.
And potentially his last match ever. What do you remember of this?
Well, it was scary, because you went through 3 or 4 possibilities of what was affecting him. I believe it was just dehydration and stress. He internalized this a lot, does Steve. And, this was huge for him. I mean, this is the end. And under normal circumstances, the end would have come with a tremendous amount of pomp and circumstance, a celebration, and et cetera. But we got none of that. All that emotion that we could have utilized, we didn't. So, and he felt like he was letting a lot of people down, and he was overtraining, and those damn energy drinks, man. I don't know. I see guys that, what's that one that's, it's a really, popular. I can't remember the name of it. It's got the blue bottle.
Bang.
No,
Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Yes.
I see guys drinking Red Bull like it was Snapple.
Yeah.
That ain't good.
Yeah.
That ain't good, man, because they don't drink enough water with it.
Right.
So we'll go back to our sponsor about the water and sleep.
Yeah.
And all those things, man. So it's important. So Steve was not sleeping. He was over caffeinating himself. His body reacted by just backing away. And so, when we all went to bed on Sunday night in the middle of the night, or Saturday night in the middle of the night, we didn't know if he was going to be able to wrestle Rock or not in the main event. The only amendment that was made to that was that they did not close the show, which was regrettable just because it was them. But it didn't adversely affect too many things, I don't think. So, but Brock and Kurt got a break there. They got that WrestleMania main event spot that probably would not have occurred if Steve and I had not had this overnight hospital stay.
Listen, I got to ask.
You don't have to.
Well, I do. are you saying that prior to Steve's hospital stint, that was going on last, but
Yeah,
okay.
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, even I could book that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have gone on last, Connie,
You
as it should have. To end the trilogy,
yes.
all that good stuff, it would have gone on last under normal circumstances. And that's not an indictment against it. Brock and Kurt weren't ready. Nah, bullshit.
Right.
That's not true. That ain't accurate. So they were ready. And so I had no problem with that. But Austin and Rock should have closed that show under normal circumstances. And I challenge anybody watching or listening to argue that point to the contrary. How would you not close the show with Rock and Austin if you could?
I agree.
And that's kind of where we were, buddy.
How much pressure was added, or was there any extra added pressure because you had all these extra cameras present? You know, they're going to make a movie about this WrestleMania, and there's going to be lots of backstage footage, and there's just more cameras than normal. And a lot of them are running around backstage in an era where that's not exactly common like it is now. Do you remember that being an extra wrinkle of stress, or not so much?
Well, for me, not so much, because I spent very little time backstage. Obviously, during the show, I was working at ringside.
Right.
And I always took that as a big honor to be able to call a match at WrestleMania from ringside. It's just, it puts you in the game. And it made all the hard work over the years. Those $40 a night payoffs seemed to make sense. Paying dues, in other words. So, I don't know. I'm just trying to think, Conrad, the right words to use here. I can't. I don't know where we, it was just that was this is probably one of the most bizarre WrestleManias that I ever called, because of all the outside things that were ongoing, injuries, personal issues, Austin's health. So it was I've never called one that had more uncertainty surrounding it going into the event than this one.
Well, this event is certainly going to disappoint on pay-per-view. 560,000 buys, which is even less than the Royal Rumble 2 months earlier. And it's 280,000 fewer buys than WrestleMania the prior year, which is just crazy to think about. But the actual live gate, man, it's still a draw. People still want to turn up and buy tickets for WrestleMania. It does 2.76 million, the fourth highest gate in WWE history at that point. And it is a loaded card. Let's jump right into it. Before we even got to the main show, we had a pre-show match. The tag champs, Chief Morley and Lance Storm. Morley in, of course, for Regal. They're going to defeat Kane and RVD in a Sunday night heat match. This was originally on the pay-per-view, but due to time constraints, we move it to the pre-show, which I guess is just that's part of life.
Yeah, but here's the thing. People got to understand, too. They were removed from WrestleMania and put on the pre-show, as you had indicated, but it didn't affect their pay.
Right.
They didn't get penalized. Okay, well, now that they've been rebooked and they're not on the main show, we can adjust their pay. And that never happened. I can tell you that from doing it. So that I'm glad we did, because Kane and RVD both deserved, and so did Morley and Storm, quite frankly, deserved the payoff. And they earned it. They earned their spot on that card. They should be paid according to their contributions going into the event. And I thought we did that honorably and fairly.
We should also mention, you start the show pretty hot. They don't get a lot of time, but it's Matt Hardy and Rey Mysterio Jr. Anytime you can get Rey to sort of set the tone for your show in that first match, my goodness. Matt Hardy retains the cruiserweight title. And Wade would say it's nonstop high spots. And then about 3 minutes, Matt is going to drop Rey with a twist of fate for a near fall. And then Rey hits the 619, but Matt is going to duck the West Coast pop attempt. Eventually Matt is going to pin Ray to, retain the title, but he's holding on to the ropes. That damn dirty cheater, getting a little extra leverage. Listen, it's a 4-hour show, and we've got a lot of talent we're trying to feature here. This is long before we're a 2-night WrestleMania, so they don't get a ton of time, just 4.5 minutes, but 2.25 stars. I would have liked to have seen them have more time, but I understand that's tough to do on a card like this.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's always going to be one of the concerns when you got a card that's this expansive. You're always going to see a match that could have gone shorter or needed more time to tell a better story. That's always going to be there. Every show you see on TV, every pay-per-view, I can tell you that, when AEW does a pay-per-view, we got some coming up, that, you want that damn thing to be tight and smooth. And that's the goal, always the goal. Great wrestling heavy. I think pay-per-view should be wrestling heavy and not so dependent upon out of ring segments. Right. I think out of ring segments are important. I think they help the show, but for some reason, we forget the old adage in pro wrestling that less is more. Well, how long is my promo? It's 2 minutes. Well, I can't 2 minutes. Is that all? And then here's what you get. Well, is that all I'm worth? Don't you think I could do a promo? Yes, Mr. Weak Ego, we do. But time restraints are what they are. We can't create new time. And so what they do oftentimes is go out and go long. And they get their time back because they just took it. And that's kind of a chicken shit way of doing things. But nonetheless, it happens all the time. I'm with you. Damn right. As a wrestling fan, you can give me all the Matt Hardy and Rey Mysterio that you want. I got a beautiful text from Ray after he went in the Hall of Fame, got announced, and made me cry. And he said, it all started with you, which is pretty cool. Because the old story about me negotiating with Ray was I brought him to TV, and I think it was I know it's in Southern California. I met with him, and I didn't hire him because he had a hell of a deal on one of those Turner contracts. He was still getting paid a lot of money, more than I was going to offer him, and I told him that. So because he needed to know the whole story. But I did tell him, I'm going to hire you if you want to come to work for us. And I can't pay you what you're earning today, but I can fully expect if you stay healthy, Ray, you're going to blow that number completely out of the water. And he did. I didn't lie to him. And so when he said that to me, it brought tears to my eyes that, it all started with you because I believed in him. I'd never hired a talent his size under Vince McMahon's payroll. And so I felt a win there. I got a win on that one. And now look, Ray's still at it and doing great and going to the Hall of Fame. And, his angle with his son is interesting. And it's just hard to believe that kid is wrestling when he hung around his dad, all those years I was there. He was just a little fart. And coming to work with Dad is kind of cool. And look where it's got him. He invested in the family business, and now he's going to be able to earn a good living doing it.
So listen, the thing about Ray in this match is it comes out in the torch that this match was originally slotted for 15 minutes.
Probably was.
But they get their time cut. And maybe you're thinking it might be time to cut some things around your house. Talking about your dick hair, boys and girls.
What?
Manscaped is here to trim those bushes. Come on now. Spring has sprung, and our friends at Manscaped, the leaders in the below the waist grooming, have the best tools for the spring cleaning in your britches, y'all. Trust me, your confidence will be blooming like the flowers. Look your best this spring and join the other 8 million men who trust Manscaped. When you use the code Jim Ross, you get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Being Manscaped is important, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah. It helps keep you cleaner.
Yes.
You look better.
Yes.
That little clipper thing, I don't know it's got a name.
The weed whacker.
Yeah. I use that to trim my beard.
Oh, come on now.
Don't you?
Listen, we do have the Beard Hedger Pro, and I'm excited to talk to you about that, but I'm really here to brag about the Performance Package 4.0, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Tony's favorite, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, and Bischoff's favorite, the Crop Reviver toner. That's right. It's going to get your boys, well, not hitting the water as much. Performance boxer briefs and JR's own Shed travel bag. He uses it every week, folks. It's the real deal. And the Lawnmower, go ahead.
It goes on the road with me every trip, Connie. That's my one and only shaving kit. And it's made of leather.
Yeah.
Pleather or something. It's strong, it's sturdy. There's so many good things about Manscaped. They've been a sponsor for us for a long time.
Years.
We've had a lot of fun with these guys.
Yes.
And they allow us to do so.
Yes.
Which we appreciate. But the product itself is one of those ideas. I've said this many times with a lot of our sponsors. Why in the hell didn't I think of that?
Yeah, really. I mean, this thing is waterproof. It's also equipped with an LED light, so you can trim your bag in the dark or in the shower. And by the way, it's got skin safe technology. We've all unfortunately tried this before Manscaped came into our life. And if you weren't careful, it wound up looking like, or the bathroom floor wound up looking like CSI Oklahoma. Like, who was murdered in here? Well, you don't have that anymore with the Lawnmower 4.0. And by the way, the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer is something I keep by my recliner in the living room. I'm breathing better than ever. I mean that. It really, I feel like, helps clean that out in there. Come on.
You're not
now.
growing those brush piles in your nose anymore.
I'm not. And who thinks that's attractive? Nobody. Get some of Tony Schiavone's ball deodorant too. I don't know what makes them do the things they want to do, but I know what makes them not want to. So check it out. You'll get the ball deodorant and the ball toner, even the boxer briefs and the Shed travel bag. They've got all the tools for the job. Head to their website right now and upgrade your hygiene routine. And why not get 20% off and free shipping? Just use our code Jim Ross.
That's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
You're going to save money and you're going to get free shipping.
How do you beat it?
On a product that works like a champion. Simple as that. I understand sometimes in some households, it might be a little uncomfortable to discuss. So don't discuss it. Just go do it and clean yourself up. I don't know anything about Tony Schiavone's balls, but nonetheless, if he's happy, I'm happy.
There you go. Tony Schiavone is proud to show you his balls. Just ask him when you see him. And then you'll know that you need to get 20% off and free shipping with the code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. Your balls and your significant other will thank you.
They will. And they might even give him a hug.
Speaking of balls, Limp Bizkit had a ball when they're out here to play the Undertaker's music out live for his match. I don't know if maybe there's not a huge amount of Limp Bizkit fans now, but this was a big deal back then to have the big musical entrance. It adds a lot to WrestleMania. It feels special. It feels like a one-off. And thankfully, Nathan Jones was taken out backstage before the match. So it starts off as Undertaker and Nathan Jones, not really, against Big Show and A-Train. Taker's going to give Train a big boot and then duck the Show clothesline and nail Show with a flying clothesline. Eventually, as you might imagine, Nathan Jones is going to show up here, but he needs a little bit of help to win, but not a ton. It's about 10 minutes without him. And when it's all said and done, it gets a 1.5 stars. The match leaves a lot to be desired. You got a couple of Hall of Famers in there for sure. No doubt that Big Show and Undertaker are Hall of Famers. We're still trying to establish A-Train and Nathan Jones. This creative feels a little less than for the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Fair to say?
Yeah, fair to say. I'll agree with Bruce on that deal. Sometimes Undertaker was taken for granted.
Yeah.
At WrestleMania. This is one of those times. And then as time went on, we saw how valuable that streak was and how important it was, how debatable it was and conversational. It was a point of emphasis. So, but we didn't always do great by Taker, in my view. I think we took him for granted because he was such a team player. I said many times he's the conscience of the WWE, and I kind of meant just the locker room. If you saw guys slacking or half-assing it or trying to phone it in or whatever, sometimes he was the guy that would tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, what's going on? So how can we fix this? Because what you're doing right now is not working.
Right.
Taker's like any other talent on the card. Connie. He wanted to build opponents he could work with. That's as simple as that. Future opponents. That's the goal. And we thought we might have had because of their size, that A-Train and Nathan might have been potential. Just physically, they look imposing. It's hard sometimes to book a 7-foot baby face. And that's what we were doing with Taker all those years. He was the biggest. He was oftentimes the biggest guy in the match, and you just didn't always find that in baby faces. But he was such a great worker that he pulled it off.
Well, next up, we've got Trish Stratus, Victoria, and Jazz in a 3-way. They get 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Trish is going to capture the WWE Women's title from Victoria here. It gets 2 stars. These are 3 super talented ladies. All 3. I mean, I know that these days we're talking about the women's revolution, and there was an era in this company where it was lots of bra and panty matches.
Yeah.
This is not one of those. These 3 ladies could work.
Yeah. That was the difference. Vince gave me the mandate to hire athletic 10s, and that's hard to do. Trish is the best example I can give you right now off the top of my head of an athletic 10. And I'm curious to see how she does at WrestleMania, and I'm glad that she got the booking. So, but yeah, it seemed the women really wanted to be taken more seriously and not as just attractions, bra and panty match, chocolate pudding matches and shit like that. And this match, this women's match at WrestleMania, I think really was a great indication of where we wanted to go at some point in time, and at the point that they have reached now. Same in AEW, our women are getting so much better. They're getting coached up. They want to learn. They're physical. They're not intimidated by getting a bruise or a boo-boo. So I'm proud of the women in AEW especially. But you see that where it starts is interesting in our show. We can name things that occurred that affect today's product. And that match that we're talking about here, with Trish involved, and let's don't forget Lisa. She was very underrated, and she started from zero. She started as one of the hosts of The Godfather, so she wasn't like a trained years in a dojo or something. She just had a hard work ethic and was physical and strong, and so I really those women should be acknowledged for their contributions for the growth of women's wrestling going forward. And they did a hell of a job.
Let's mention the next backstage skit is Jonathan Coachman, and he's going to start interviewing The Rock. But instead of there being a huge pop like you might imagine, Rock is met with silence and eventually some boos. And Rock says Austin may have beat him the last 2 times they met at WrestleMania, but the one thing he learned in Hollywood is that nobody remembers Act 1 and 2. Tonight's Act 3, and that's all they'll remember. And this is the final chapter of the greatest feud in history. And when he was about to say his whole finally The Rock routine, he took off his sunglasses, wells up a few tears, puts his sunglasses back on, and walks off before finishing. This isn't exactly what you might expect from a Rock promo, but the crowd didn't react like they normally would even remotely react for The Rock. And there's been some fans in that area who think maybe we were such a bad crowd, they never brought us another major show again. Do you remember there being some negative feelings towards the way the crowd was reacting as far as The Office?
Of course, you want a bigger pop.
Yes.
You want a bigger reaction, obviously, ideally, but I don't think we've ever singled out Seattle as I know we were there here a while back for AEW, and they were great. So there was never any boycott of Seattle, and certainly not because of the crowd response at select points in the show. But I thought Rock's promo was excellent. But I knew the backstory. See, I knew it was Austin's last match. Obviously, Dwayne knew it was Austin's last match. So, and I think that fact was kind of hidden in that promo. Now, if you look back at it, you say, "Oh, I get it. I got it now." And so I had no issues with that promo whatsoever. Matter of fact, I liked it.
I like the promo too, and I like the match that's next. It's Team Angle, Benjamin and Haas against Eddie and Chavo, and also Rhino and Chris Benoit. So it's a 6-way brawl for the WWE SmackDown titles. They only get 8.5 minutes. Seems like once they get going, well, their time is up. 3 stars, but a lot of talent in there. Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, just criminally underrated. I think everybody agrees that Eddie and Chavo, man, you want to talk about wrestling royalty. And Rhino and Chris Benoit, that could have been a fun team too, but Benoit and Eddie here, just sort of middle of the card, and just 1 year later, man, things look a little different for them, does it not?
Yeah, I think it shows you how fast things can change. Philosophies can change. If somebody would have said 5 years ago, for example, and there may be other numbers that are applicable, that at WrestleMania, you got 2 sub 6-footers winning.
Yep.
It may sound stupid to folks that are listening or watching us today on YouTube, but it just shows you how fast things can change. It could be a disaster. It could be an injury. It could be somebody's not getting over, and we need to change some ingredients in our stew. And I think that's kind of where we were. So, but it is hard to fathom that just simply 1 year later, the climate changed, the presentation changed. It's just a whole different WrestleMania than we have been experiencing.
We get the Miller Lite girls, Tori Wilson and Stacy, out here, and they're going to have a discussion about who they think will win between Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. And then we get our first great match of the night. Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho get plenty of time, 22 minutes and 34 seconds. Wade would give it 4.25 stars, and he would even say it was an excellent match. Surprising finish in the sense that now is the time to elevate stars who can draw at house shows every weekend. But the match was good enough that not that much damage was likely done. For not wrestling often over the past several months, Michaels delivered a nearly prime of his career level performance. I know that there's no debate amongst anyone listening to this that Shawn Michaels is either 1A or 1B greatest of all time. But Chris Jericho proved that he could hang, man. And
he might be 1C, Conrad.
Maybe so.
Where has Chris been, especially lately in AEW, where he hasn't been stellar?
Right.
I mean, I can't remember any pay-per-view matches that he had that were the drizzling doo-doos. That's a t-shirt, by the way.
We'll get the drizzling doo-doo shirt up right now. Why not?
So anyway, but that match did not disappoint me never 1 second. It over delivered, and I had so high expectations for it, and those guys delivered big time. So, anytime you talk about the greatest workers ever, and there's been so many of them, and this is a very touchy subject. If you don't include Chris Jericho in that conversation, then you're not being true to yourself. When did he never not deliver?
Right.
You figure it out. Let me know. I'm on Twitter at JRSBBQ. I'd like to know.
In addition to that, Kurt Angle recently said he thinks Chris Jericho is the greatest of all time. He thought it was Shawn Michaels, but he says based on the longevity, it's got to be Chris Jericho. If you're going to watch one match from the show, I might even say this is the one to watch. Historically, it might not have as much impact as the Rock Austin one, but when it just comes to bell wrestling, this is about as good as it gets. And next we get the French Canadian referee coming into Vince McMahon's office with a big smile on his face. And then, believe it or not, a Goldberg vignette airs with highlights of his Nitro days. And we learn that he's going to be wrestling on Backlash in April. And the footage brings on a Goldberg chant. I guess this makes sense. Promote that Goldberg is coming at your biggest show of the year in front of your biggest paying audience, right?
Why not? I mean, it's logical marketing to me. And but we got a good reaction in Seattle. for Goldberg's announcement. I thought it was good. So, yeah, you gotta throw it out there. You gotta, hey, this is coming. Mark this down. You don't want to miss this. Now, finally, we know about Goldberg. When's he coming? When's he going to wrestle? Blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was well timed.
I can't believe this happened, but now we get our pee break of the show. Limp Bizkit comes out to perform the WrestleMania theme live. And then we get the Miller Lite girls coming out on an oversized bed on the entrance stage. And before they can have a pillow fight, Stacy's going to walk out and say the only thing better than 2 girls in bed is 3. And then Tori says the only thing missing is a Playboy cover girl. And then they start tearing each other's clothes off. And yeah, this is all at a WrestleMania. I don't know, man. Listen, I understand it's a different time, different era, but a few more minutes on that Mysterio match wouldn't have killed nobody.
No, but the other thing you got to consider, Conrad, is you're making a very valid point. But the other thing you got to consider is how do you follow HBK and Y2J?
Well, there you go. That's fair.
There's no match on the card that can immediately follow that match and how those guys delivered. And so you go another route.
Yes.
You don't throw fastballs now. We're going to throw junk. We're going to throw all speed pitches. And we're going to try to get a little TNA, a little sex appeal, and entertainment content. So I don't know what else you book. Putting somebody, a male talent or a female talent, a match immediately following Jericho and Michaels would have been suicidal. Wasn't going to work. So you got to let, as you said, that's Vince's expression. We got to let them up. So we let them up. And then we hit the restart, and it worked out pretty good in that regard.
Well, the restart involves Triple H and Booker T going 18 minutes and 50 seconds. And before the match, you guys are going to be joking about WCW. And this is a decent enough match, I suppose. But boy, there is a pretty controversial moment where when Hunter hits the pedigree, it seemingly takes forever for him to cover Booker. And you just assume, well, he's definitely going to kick out. It took him forever to get there. And that is not the case. Given the build and the perceived racial overtones that people were uncomfortable with, especially in hindsight, I don't know, man. This doesn't feel like the right call. What would it have hurt to have Booker T get a win here?
Probably nothing.
Yeah.
There's more than one right way to get something done, Conrad. And this is one of those illustrations, very clear, at least in my mind, that Booker T would have been a good selection to be the champion.
Right.
It just was not in the long-term plans. So as I said earlier, I was proud of the fact that he got the opportunity. The Booker got the opportunity to play in that role because he earned it. He deserved it. And so the same argument could be made. Well, did he not deserve to be the champion? I can't say that. I'm not going to say that. Just for the sake of a soundbite. But it wouldn't hurt nothing. It wouldn't hurt anything for him to have been a champion. How long? Well, you know how long a reign is based on productivity. Ticket sales, pay-per-view sales, merchandise sales. There's a lot of measurables in wrestling, especially today, that weren't there when I first got in the business. Because then the talents didn't even have merch and didn't have pay-per-view. So the whole climate, at least in my experience, that's one of the things we're writing about in our book now, Paul O'Brien and I, is that how much the business has changed in so many significant ways that I happened to be at the right place at the right time and experienced it. So if I had a chance to live in any other generation, I wouldn't change a thing. Not one thing. Because I learned long ago, Connie, I used to worry so much about things I could not control or a problem I could not solve. And that'll drive you crazy. So, I don't think it would hurt Booker at all. Good man, great story, talented worker, good talker. He checks all the boxes.
Yes.
it just didn't go down that way on that night. And again, but it wouldn't have been would have been disaster, a bad scenario for Booker T to become the WWE champion. Hell no, of course not. Of course not. It just wasn't to be. And I'd like to think it had nothing to do with race.
I'd like to think it had nothing to do with race too. It just feels like since race was sort of implied that it would have been a good feel good story for him to win. And then, have him drop it back at the next pay-per-view.
Right. It could have been done.
Next up though, something that we maybe could have seen last. I can't believe this is real, but the Torch reports that at one point in the prior week, Vince actually suggested that he and Hulk Hogan close the show. Instead, they come up next. They go 20 minutes and 53 seconds. Yeah. 21 minutes for Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon here. Yeah. Of course, we know there is a big reveal. Going to be lots of blood, lots of craziness. Listen, if you want to watch one other match from this show, I would recommend this one. I know that sounds crazy, but you just won't believe all that Vince is willing to do. If you're watching on YouTube, you see him bloody jumping off ladders here. It's crazy what all's happening. And of course, as you might imagine, or as you may recall, Roddy Piper shows up, and Wade didn't love it. He gave it 2 and 3/4 stars. But he says, I don't think there was even one traditional bump in the match, and they did wrestle like 49 and 58-year-old men, but the blood and storytelling abilities of Hogan and Vince carried the match, not to mention sheer inspired effort. So yeah, maybe they're not what they once were, but the story is so good and so big, and they're doing such over the top stuff. It delivered pretty damn well.
It overachieved in my view. Yes. I didn't think it'd be that good.
Yes.
And I'm not being, naysayer. I didn't think it'd be that good, Connie. And it's pleasantly surprised me. And they did take a lot of risks, especially Vince. He wasn't no kid. What'd you say, he was 58?
Yeah, that's right.
So whatever, somewhere in that, he's almost 60 years old.
Yes.
So hats off to him, man, for getting himself in great shape, looking wonderful, and then going out and, was it a spot fest? Yeah, because that's what they could do.
Right.
They didn't overbook the match and work a double wrist lock. And I'm not knocking double wrist locks. I'm just saying that's not their bailiwick.
Right.
So they brought what they could do. I thought they overachieved, and it did nothing but add to the show in certainly a unique way, but it added, and that was all. That's what you want. Every match got to add something.
The shot that I'll never forget from this is Vince peeking over, bloody as hell, peeking over the apron. And when he looks up, and it's almost like Kilroy, and you just see that maniacal smile and all the blood all over his face.
Yeah.
One of the most, maybe the most iconic shot from this WrestleMania, but we're not done. We've still got our 2 real main events to come. The Rock and Stone Cold go 17 minutes and 52 seconds. They're pulling out all the stops here. And eventually, after 3 rock bottoms, as Wade would write, Austin laid flat for the 3 count. Rock celebrated, then bent over Austin, patted him on the chest in a subtle shoot salute to his top rival. Austin was slow to exit the ring, but when he did, they played his music as he walked to the back. He turned to look at the crowd for a second, then kept walking. When he got to the stage, he gave him the double middle finger salute. Very good match from 2 pros. The finish surprised and deflated the crowd. They logically had Rock win clean, since Rock has to go on to the April pay-per-view strong against Goldberg. 4 stars. Of course, it's not mentioned in the Torch or the Observer that this is Austin's last match, because as you pointed out at the top of the show, it didn't leak.
No, it didn't leak, which is good. That made Steve happy.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. And we talk about making Steve happy. Why not? Why wouldn't you not want to make your top guys happy?
Yes.
It's crazy. I can tell you, Conrad, it was the time in my career when Austin was leaving that I fought back tears and getting choked up more than any other time in my life. And I know that's going to sound bad for some people because of other situations I've had to broadcast through. I'm not comparing it to that. It was a different kind of emotion. And because I knew that we're seeing him leave for the last time.
Yes.
And it was emotional for me because I knew what that meant to Steve. And, we were great friends. We still are, which I'm proud to say. There's nothing like having a good friend in Stone Cold. And because he's always there. He's reliable. Number one asset that you want to have, if you're going to get and make it in pro wrestling, your ass better be reliable. And I know that sounds overly simplistic. It's just true as hell. And but I had a hard time holding back my emotions. And I haven't listened to that back either in all those years. So I don't know if you could tell in my voice or not that where I was mentally, but it was hard to pull through. And I'm kind of glad that was my last assignment that night, because Michael Cole and Taz, I think, did the main event. And I'm glad they did because I had it. I was emotionally spent. And again, not just because of the match and the flow of the match and the back and forth, the momentum changes and so forth, but the fact that I knew this was Steve's end.
Yeah.
The end of the rattlesnake was hard for me to contain and to process. But we got through it, and seemingly we've all lived kind of happily ever after.
It's pretty fun to see at the end of the match. You see both of these guys talking to each other. Rock leans over him and just talking to him, telling him what this means. And I think at the time there was probably some thought that this might be both of their last WrestleManias. Nobody necessarily thought this was the end of their wrestling career, but what if this is the end? What if this is their last WrestleMania? We know it didn't work out to be that way, but it's hard not to get emotional about it. And, it's time for our main event. And we know that before we get here, Angle has been hurting for certain. He's taken every precaution he can to keep himself ready and available for this match. But in order to be in the main event, you got to be in the best shape of your life. And if you're looking to do some of that, maybe you need a little athletic greens in your life.
Ooh,
JR
yeah.
and I start our day every single day with athletic greens because we want better gut health and more energy and to optimize our immune system. And if you're like me and you hate taking pills or vitamins and you actually want a supplement that tastes great, maybe you want to see what the hype is about, you've got to try athletic greens. Now, what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, everything you need to start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients to help your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your focus, your recovery, your aging, all of the things. It's also lifestyle friendly. Man, whether you're doing keto or paleo, or maybe you're vegan or dairy free or gluten free, well, AG1's for you. It's got less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It'll also support better sleep quality and recovery, better mental clarity and alertness. And think of it as like your all-in-one nutritional insurance. And it's something JR and I really believe in, but don't just take our word for it. They've got over 7,000 5-star reviews. And
That's amazing.
It is. We want you to reclaim your health right now. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it.
That's all.
No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
It works, folks. I can tell you that. And you don't spend half your day picking out the pills. And did I take this one? Did I not take this supplement? It's just so simple. And again, a key word, it works. So try it and you'll feel better damn near immediately.
You're going to love it. Can't recommend it enough. Let's get back to our main event, man. Here we go. Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle. It's 21 minutes and 7 seconds going in. The story was, will Kurt Angle survive? But the real story became, will Brock Lesnar survive? Towards the end of the night, you're going to see Brock Lesnar start climbing the ropes, something that you never saw Brock do before.
He did it in OVW a lot, honestly, Conrad, not to screw our buzz here, but he had never done it in a WWE ring.
Right.
And I will go to my grave saying He had never done it in a WWE ring, and this was not the place to try it for the first time. Nobody should go on live TV, a pay-per-view, obviously in this case, and not do things that they had not already done. They had not already executed. There was a comfort level, a safety level. And for Brock to go to the top, it was impressive, no doubt about it. But he down there bought the farm on that deal too. I remember after the show having a long talk with him and his dad. You know, this talent relations thing wasn't a 9-to-5 gig.
Right.
You're never off the clock. You don't ever want to future a talent who wants to talk. Okay, let's do this tomorrow. I wasn't a big guy on doing shit tomorrow. Let's do it now. So, because it must be important to you because you brought it up. So, but that was a move that we knew he could do, but I would never, even in hindsight, I would never have recommended that we do that spot. The risk reward was too out of balance for my comfort.
Right. You know, listen, there's been a lot of discussion over the years. Why did he do it here? And there's been a rumor for a while that perhaps an agent suggested it. More specifically, a lot of people say Johnny Ace said, "Hey, think you could do that here?" Did you ever hear that story that perhaps this was Johnny's suggestion?
Oh yeah, we conversed over that. I relayed here on I'm glad that he came to see us in Phoenix, he meaning John Laurinaitis.
Yes.
And he and I spent some good time together. You know, I'm too old, Conrad, and all these health issues have made me so aware of my mortality that I don't want to live in that mindset.
Negativity. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good for your health. It's not good for nothing. And so we cleared the air and I'm glad we did. And we've communicated since then, which I'm glad that we have. So, but he made a decision. Look, sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And if the move had come off as it was intended to, Connie, it was a great spot.
Yes. But
it didn't come off as we had intended. And we were just lucky as hell that Lesnar didn't break his neck.
Yes. Well, we know that he's going to be groggy and hurting for certain when he misses this shooting star press. Angle's going to cover him for a near fall, and somehow Lesnar manages to kick out and then pull off a rushed F5. He looks totally out of it, like he's not aware of his surroundings as he's grabbing at the belt. Angle's going to approach him and they shake hands and hug. Fireworks are going off. But you want to talk about a rough ending to a show. I mean, here's your top new guy. We're seemingly seeing a passing of the torch. It's no longer about Rock and Austin. Now it's about Angle and Lesnar, and the new hotshot, the youngest guy here. He's going to pull a death-defying move and pull up a little short over a guy who has really killed his body the last 3 years to make himself a top star, all with a broken freaking neck. But somehow, man, fans don't just gravitate to it. It sells less pay-per-views than the Rumble. Were you happy it was over? Were you glad it happened? Are you relieved nobody was hurt worse? What's the thinking here when it's all
well, I'm glad to get out of there without making any more trips to the hospital.
Yes.
That was pretty damn important because of the injuries. It was just like a runaway plague that we had to find a cure for. And there really isn't a cure other than telling your guys to slow down. Don't take so many risks. So, but yeah, I was kind of glad the show was over because I had slept. It's not all about me, Al Franken, as they used to say on Saturday Night Live. But I hadn't slept. I was wore out. I was mentally exhausted. And then seeing Steve ride off into the sunset, saddle up and move on to never be seen again at that point in time. At least that was the mindset. And he was pretty head fast on that deal too. Because it was a lot of years before he stepped back in the ring to do anything.
Yes.
So he was serious about it. And when you have a good friend that's serious about something, you should take heed, should pay attention. And so that's what we did there. But I was glad it was over, Connie. It was a show that, you know, it was a head scratcher on so many fronts, so stressful, that I'm glad we got through it. And look, we did a hell of a gate. The buys weren't as good as we had hoped. It told us that 3 main events are the same at WrestleMania might be too much. And I think that was proven. And we never promoted the event like we could have promoted it if we had been able to go public with Austin's decision to say win, lose, or draw, I'm out of here. My body's not going to cooperate. And if that had happened, I think, at least my general thought, Conrad, is that it would have done a hell of a lot better buy rate.
Right.
But that's not what our top guy wanted. We understood what he wanted and why he wanted it, and so we went along with it. And at the end of the day, it probably cost us some bucks.
Let's do a couple questions, then we'll put a bow on this one. Francis Reyes says, did you have a plan B if Austin could not have wrestled at Mania?
Well, if there was, I don't know what it was, Francis. Really, there was no viable options. You can create something, but you're going to have to rebook the card. And so no, Francis, I answer you directly. If there was a plan B, and there probably was some loosely discussed plan B, but if you had been in the hospital room with Austin and saw the intensity in his eyes that I'm making my booking,
right,
I'm going to have this match, and I'm going to do right by Rock because he did right by me, you would have had very little doubt that the match is not going to go on and be successful. And it pretty much was. So no plan B, Francis. I'm sorry. I lingered there.
No, all good. Here's a great question. Adam Arpin wants to know, in late 2002, we see a bidding war between Raw and SmackDown for an incoming and highly hyped Scott Steiner. But come March, Scott can't even make the WrestleMania card. Well, their plans are talks about Steiner having a role in WrestleMania 19 at the time of his signing that didn't come to fruition after seeing how limited he was in his matches with Triple H.
Well, we didn't know how limited Scotty was going to be.
Right.
He had that great name identity, the wonderful body. People knew who he was. He had a star feel, but we didn't realize that his skills, because of injury, had eroded to the level that they had. We tried. It just never got over. And that's, I don't know. Maybe that's a mistake of mine, or maybe that's a mistake of mine and Vince's, that we thought he had fuel left in the tank and could be a viable asset for us. And under normal circumstances, i.e. being injury free and not limited, that would have been accurate.
How does he have an attitude about not being on WrestleMania?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
I don't recall that. Anybody that's not on the card that has any self-respect is going to be upset that they're not booked. Of
course.
That's the show, which I think is another reason that the 2-night show for WrestleMania this weekend is good for the talent. I've always been a talent first guy.
Yes.
I always will be a talent first guy. You would not believe the talents, the text messages. Last week was anniversary of Chan's death, and you would be shocked at the text messages I got from the AEW roster, various ones, and text messaging and so forth, on social media. It's a great family to be a part of. And I wish I was more a part of the, that side of it. I enjoy helping talent. And so my point was, I still do that, and I still enjoy it. So, and that's what you get when you work for a roster that's so young, work with a roster that's so young and developing. They have a thirst for information, and they have a thirst for positive reinforcement. There's always a way to share a story that has a positive ending, unless you're not smart enough to put sentences together. There's no reason. So I'm a believer, Connie, that I'm at the right place at the right time with these young kids, and I enjoy taking time out of my private time, personal time. Personal for what? What am I going to do? sit out and watch the water come into the beach, go home in Oklahoma and sit out in the backyard. All those things happen, but I love talking to talent and helping them. Sometimes they just need a attaboy,
Right.
or attagirl. That's all. So anyway, I'm really blessed to where I am, and in a position, not officially. I'm not a talent relations guy in AEW. I'm simply a veteran that the kids respect, and I've worked my entire career. Next year will be 50 years in this business. 50 years next year, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity. And if this is the last group that I'm around before I call it a day, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it might. Then so be it. I'm going to go out positively, and where those kids can call me anytime and say, "Hey, JR, can you help me with this? What do you think of that? Did you watch my match? Did you listen to this promo?" So and everybody's on that. I talk to everybody, and I love it. So I'm a lucky man, Connie. I'm healthy, pretty healthy, and I got a great job right now. Really do.
Well, one of those talents you helped a lot is who we'll be talking about next week. We'll be talking about the evolution of The Undertaker. Can't wait to talk about that. And before we get there, as I understand it, you're going to be doing Ask JR live over at adfreeshows.com. If you haven't already, why haven't you checked it out? You don't only get our shows early and ad free, you get to be a part of our live studio audience. Like today, we had a whole host of folks riding shotgun with us, including Adam and Eddie. And I know Coach Rosie was here, man. It was a sellout at the curtain, as we like to say. Greatly appreciate everybody showing up and hanging out.
Sure do. Yeah,
and
we do. Thank you guys.
We're going to get you to answer people's questions live this week over at adfreeshows.com. Tons of bonus content there too. Why not try a trial? Try it on me for free right now. It starts at just $9 a month, but I'm going to give you your first week free at adfreeshows.com. And if you're trying to grow your business, let me recommend, if you're trying to target men 25 to 54 years old, no better place to advertise than right here. Advertisewithjr.com is where you want to go. You hear some of the same sponsors year after year. You know why? Because it really works. And with our super targeted audience of men 25 to 54, there's very little waste. Get all the information you need at advertisewithjr.com. This week is going to be a big week in wrestling. Jim's looking to interact a little bit with you. Hit us up on social. He is at JR's BBQ. And of course, our show is at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram. It's Grilling JR over on Facebook. It's one thing to hear our show. It's another to see it. Recommend highly you check out Grilling JR on youtube.com. And you can also check out grillingjrtees.com. Lots of fun merch coming out every single week. And you can see it all at grillingjrshirts.com. JR'sBBQ.com, man. Before we get out of here, we got to tell everybody all about what you got going on over there. The hot sauce, the main event mustard, the Chipotle ketchup, and my favorite, that all purpose seasoning.
Yeah. You're a big fan of that, Conrad. I appreciate it. You've been a great spokesman for that particular product. Business has been really good. You know, you got Father's Day coming up. Our products make great gifts for wrestling fans. They make great additions to your pantry. And so just give it a shot. We're never closed. We ship every day. We're going to take care of you. JR'sBBQ.com. It's good stuff. It's a family business. It started in the memory of my mother and Jan, my late wife, because they influenced it. They influenced everything they were selling. Because I wouldn't be doing this at this stage of my life if I didn't believe in it and the business wasn't growing. And business is growing really well thanks to you guys. So God bless you, and thanks a lot for that. JR'sBBQ.com. Give it a shot, and you'll taste the difference. And remember, Connie, it never costs anything to look.
I love that. And I love you. Can't wait to see this next week talking about The Undertaker. In the meantime, enjoy some barbecue and enjoy maybe the best week of the year for professional wrestling. We'll see you back next week right here on Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And don't forget AEW Rampage on TNT on Friday night. We plan on opening a can of whoop-ass, appropriately enough.
We'll see you soon right here on Grilling JR.
Hey guys, need to call a quick time out here. Wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my listeners over at OU Didn't Know for a while now about all the cool things happening over at adsfreeshows.com.
A brand new series has arrived on Ad Free Shows. Top of the Card unpacks everything you need to know in the wrestling trading card space. And we're starting with the granddaddy of them all, the 1982 Wrestling All-Stars Series A set.
Now, this set was not exclusive to any one territory at the time, as we were still right at the tail end of the territory era of professional wrestling. So it was basically a who's who in professional wrestling, with card number 1 being Andre the Giant. Others included in the set include Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, and others.
20 years ago, Eric took on Stone Cold in the main event on Raw, but the real main event was the confrontation that happened backstage before the show.
Now, the next week, I'm sitting in this chair, and that same guy, I don't think I had said a word to him that day. I don't think I had seen Rick up until the point he came through that door. And he's, getting me, just telling me to get up, get out of the chair. And he's so pissed off, he's bleeding. I'm on the phone, and he's got blood running down his chin because he bit his lip. He was so mad, he bit the inside of his mouth.
He's got blood on a backstage confrontation.
I hadn't even gotten out of the chair yet.
Ad Free Shows members got to sit shotgun alongside Kevin Nash and Click This co-host Sean Oliver as they watch back some of the worst matches in history. None more so than the Yeti.
Randy, now the mummy is not Frankenstein. You don't walk with your arms straight out
with
like
the
that.
Arms out, right? And yeah. A Yeti is also not a mummy, but I don't know. Was this Jim Hurd? Who was here? Well, whose brainchild was this?
Who gives a fuck?
That's just a small taste of what we got waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why Ads Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adsfreeshows.com.